So as you know, you guys are going to get a basic annuity, you're going to get a special retirement supplement, you're going to get your Social Security, and you're going to tag your TSP. We're going to talk about each of those 4 sections. I call it a four-level pyramid instead of 3 because, you know, we are the group of people that is going to be able to benefit from the special retirement supplement, which goes by about 1,000 other names. You know, the Social Security makeup payment, the extra supplement, but its true name is the SRS, the Special Retirement Supplement. So, clarify a few things about your high 3. Your high 3 does not include danger allowances. I had a mistake in an earlier guide on that. Danger pay is included. That's the pay we give guys who climb aerial antennas, the guys who work in asbestos-filled tunnels in Washington, D.C. The allowances you get when you go to Iraq and Afghanistan and places like that are not included in your high 3 calculation. And if you're lucky enough to be capped, and you could be a 13-step 9 working in San Jose, California, and you're hitting 155.5. Guess what? Your high 3 is based on the cap. Even though you might think your award is $165,000, all you actually got paid was $155,000. And that is all your high 3 is going to be based upon because you had to actually be paid those wages in order for your 1.3% to be taken out, right? So that's what your high 3 is going to be based on. Get these questions a lot. I'm just hitting the high points, guys, of this. Now, you know there's a big target on our backs. I guarantee you things are going to continue, although it's died down a bit lately in the news. But as you know, any of the folks brought on board on or after 1/1 are revised annuity employees. They're paying 3.6% of their pay if they're a special coverage, where you're paying 1.3. It's astounding how much money that the government has to pay every 2 weeks to OPM to fund your FERS pension. See, CSRS wasn't funded when it was earned. It's funded when you draw upon it. And Congress said, no more of that. We're going to have a fully funded program. So FERS is funded contemporaneously with your paychecks. So just on my paycheck alone, a whopping $13.9 in Richmond, Virginia, I contribute $65.87. The FBI contributes $1,332 every 2 weeks. That is a very expensive annuity product, folks. And if the public knew how much that was, that's why you're going to see, I think, a slow ratcheting up, even for the on-board folks. You might see that 1.3 go to 1.8 and then 2.3. Maybe they'll once they start giving us pay increases, this is just Dan's opinion. If they give us a 1% pay adjustment in January, don't be surprised if that isn't pulled right back as a 0.5% or full percent increase in your defined benefit contribution. And in all honesty, it's still a great deal. I wouldn't bitch too much about it. Less than 12% of Americans are covered by a defined benefit plan. I know we all work very hard in our jobs and in dangerous situations, but you know, an extra 0.5% or 1% when you consider the magnitude of the benefit we're getting, it's really not it's not too crazy. The special retirement supplement. Now, this is probably number 1 question I get is, you know, can I afford to retire? Number 2 question is about the SRS. I don't know what makes it so mystically difficult to understand. I'm going to try to simplify it for you. The special retirement supplement has not a damn thing to do with Social Security. It is not paid by the Social Security Administration. If you get that annuity paid to you, it does not impact the amount of your Social Security when it is paid to you at age 62 or older. It is intended as a substitute for that amount because if you retire at age 50, like I'm going to do in December, I won't be able to draw for 12 years from Social Security because our little benefit pyramid includes 1 layer of Social Security. OPM feels badly for you, so you are going to get this payment. It's calculated in a similar fashion to the way Social Security calculates your age 62 benefit, but it has nothing to do with Social Security. So I want you to know that. There is no application process to do. If you are due the special retirement supplement, it will be paid to you. There's nothing that you need to do, and it will stop automatically when you start completing the form that you'll get every year to report how much earned income you make. So when you make more, and this stuff's all in the guide, guys. I'm just going over the tough stuff. The limit this year is $15,120. So for every $2 you make over that, you lose $1 of that SRS. There's a little chart in here, so when you get to $39,120 of earned income, you've lost out on the SRS. The earned income is income that you made where a Social Security component was deducted. So it doesn't include your annuities, it doesn't include dividends or interest. It has to be wage earning hump money, self-employed money, wherever you paid a Social Security component on. So understand that. It does not include your husband or wife's income. It's just yours. And it only includes income after the date of your MRA. We'll talk about that in a minute. So if you made $50,000, let's say your MRA is July 1st and you got some contract on March 1st and you got paid $75,000 in that contract, you would not report that. Even though it's in the same tax year, it happened before you hit your MRA. So that's all in the guide. If you have questions, we'll have them to the end. But the SRS somehow still seems to be a confusing thing. It averages about $900 to $1,200 a month for most people. If you found yourself not making any money at all in high school and college, if you didn't work, you'll find yours is a bit lower. If you're working a short career like me, 21 years and 3 months, it's not going to be as rich as somebody who worked 30 years because it's based on a 40-year career. So mine ends up being about $975 or so when I worked it out, because I got a pretty short career, but I did work since I was 16, so that helps a bit. Eligibility to retire, we're all pretty familiar with that, 25 years at any age, or age 50 with at least 20 years of service. I'm not covering any of the non-6C stuff in here. I do have a guide if you've got a spouse that is regular FERS. I do have that guide. You can email me for it, but it's a huge pain in the ass to try to do both of those, and nothing brings a group together like explaining one group how great you've got it and now the other group doesn't. Trust me, it's a real team building effort. So it's nice when you can just address, you know, one group of people and not have to keep going back and forth between those. So once we get, so I'm going to go out at age 50. I share a lot of my own personal data because I don't give a shit. It's public knowledge. I'm 13.9 in Richmond. I'm going to be 50 years old on December 5th, and I'm getting the hell out of here by the end of the year. There's not an act of God that could keep me here past age 50. I work with a lot of, I've made a few friends in this industry too. Elaine and John are two of my friends that they do this for a living. They've been doing it for 20 years. They're hired by the SEC, the Veterans Administration, the FBI, to do kind of what I'm trying to slam 8 hours of the crap into 90 minutes right now. And Elaine and I had dinner recently when she came to Richmond. She said, Dan, I just can't for the life of me understand why any law enforcement officer, firefighter, or air traffic controller would work a day past age 50. Why would you do that? But see, they don't have the advantage that I have of doing what you've done for 20 years. So I explained that to her because we enjoy what we're doing. A lot of us do anyway. We enjoy what we're doing. But for the outsiders, though, they just can't imagine why you'd want to stay a minute past there. You leave at age 50, you can suck down that SRS for 7 more years, even if you want to make $200,000 a year. I have yet to see a gravestone inscribed with, I wish I spent more time at the office, okay? If you're going to get, we're going to talk about retirement, like stay or go in a second, but if you only look at the money side, folks, trust me, it pays to work. I'll save you the trouble. Don't retire. If you want to improve the subjective parts of your life and enjoy your children or your family or some other thing that you like to do, then you want to think about retiring. Okay, there's a little confusion between the minimum retirement age, which obviously would be age 50 if you got your 20 years in, and your MRA. The MRA is an OPM acronym for minimum retirement age. Depending on your year of birth, it's going to be either 56 or 57 for you. Mine happens to be 56. If you're born in 1970 or later, it's going to be 57. That's the only thing that really matters for you is that's the age, that's the income testing benchmark for the special retirement supplement. Other than that, it's not your minimum retirement age, but that has a lot of meaning to the non-special provisions folks. That is their minimum retirement age. You wouldn't believe the number of emails I get from people who are like 53, 54, and they're non-law enforcement, and they're talking about retirement, and I have to just stop them. Hey, bud, that's a separation, my friend. That is not a retirement. You've got to be 57 years old to leave this organization with an immediate annuity. We have a really good, folks. There ain't that many places in America you can walk out the door at age 50 and with a defined benefit plan. What happens if I die before I'm eligible for retirement? OPM retires you on the day you die. Isn't that great? Now, there's one caveat to that. I'm sorry for going so fast. I'm just trying to slam 8 hours of crap in 90 minutes. FEHB. If you're not in self and family status when you choose to die, your surviving spouse will not have FEHB insurance. You had to be self and family at the time of death for that to happen. And I know how cheap agents are, because I'm one. And you would not believe how many times I talk to guys, wifey is a school teacher in Wisconsin, and of course that hugely liberal state gives everything to their employees, so they get free health insurance for life, right? So what's a cheap agent gonna do? I'm on wifey's plan, right? I know people who are still working right now because they're not gonna be able to have the 5 years in the FEHB before they retire, because they were, taking the cheap way out on wifey's plan or vice versa, on husband's plan. So think about that. If you have a spouse who's got the free insurance and you're sucking down on that one, and you're within 5 years of retirement, you need to have FEHB in your own right. You can pick up a pretty cheap Aetna high deductible plan for about $80 a month, and that'll get you your membership paid, because a lot of these other folks who get it for free don't get it in retirement for free. Like, Henrico County, where I am in Virginia, they get zero when they retire. They get paid for when they're on the job. When they retire, they get nothing. One of the most valuable benefits we walk out of here with is FEHB for life. The government continues to pay up to 3/4, but it's around 2/3 of the premium for you. When you open up those open season packets, and you see the monthly rates and you see the biweekly rates, if you do the math, it's the same per day, folks. The monthly rate is for annuitants and the biweekly rate is for employees. Same amount of money. You don't pay any more for that coverage when you're in retirement. And to have an OPM-sponsored plan like that for the rest of your life is just not something you want to screw up because you're saving a few bucks on your husband or wife's plan. So make sure in your 5 years, whatever you plan to die or retire, make sure you've got that going at least 5 years out. Now, do I receive credit for unused sick leave? I must have gotten 100 emails out of the last edition I pushed out. I send this out to almost 10,000 people, by the way, directly emailed from Constant Contact. So I got about 100 emails back saying, Dan, what are you retiring on 12/20 for? Did you get credit for your sick leave when you stayed till January 11th? It's true. Does anybody here want to guess how much sick leave Dan Jamison has right now? If I had a big board, I would put 0.0. I have managed in 21 years to use every single hour of sick leave ever accrued on my paycheck. Okay? I got paid 100% for that time. Now, if I accrue it and I roll it into my retirement, I'm going to be paid 1% for that time. Some people don't see my crooked little accountant math, but there's something very proud about leaving with no sick leave on the books. So I'm leaving on December 20th because I don't have anything to roll over. But there are people that have 2,000 hours of sick leave, after a full career. So that would definitely make sense to stay until January 11th, which is the end of the leave year. So that's late enough where you can still cash out your annual leave from this year and not lose it out because the leave year ends on the 11th, but get full credit for that, because right now it's just 50% credit for 2013. A lot of questions on how to convert that. When OPM calculates your length of service, it is calculated in calendar days. And for retirement purposes, every month has 30 days. So if you have 93 days of sick leave, that's 3 months and 3 days of service. That's how that works out. Forget about February and all those strange months with 31 you remember on your knuckles. It's 30-day months. So it's real easy math to do, folks. Look at your sick leave balance, and every 5.8 hours of sick leave is 1 calendar day. You got to think about that because your sick leave is posted on your pay stub in work days, but you get credit for calendar days of service. So you have to make a conversion from work days to calendar days. So when you're trying to figure out, like I did, whether it's worth it or not to keep those 47 days at the beginning of the year or burn them all, that is the math you want to do. Divide it by 5.8, and that's how many days of calendar service you've got. Sorry I don't have a big whiteboard to do some math on, but when you get ready to retire, OPM does one thing first. There's a great website, I put it in here, called timeanddate.com. Go there, click on time between two dates, your EOD or your SCD, and your expected retirement date. It's going to give you a number, like 25 years, 3 months, 18 days. If you didn't get credit for your sick leave, OPM would cross off the 18 and throw it away. It's gone. You get credit for whole years and whole months. But now that you get credit for sick leave, They do that calculation, and then they go look at your hours, and they say, all right, you've got that 18 days hanging out there, but now you've also got 1 year, 2 months, and 12 days of sick leave. And they add those two together now before they chop off. The 18 and the 12 come together to make 30. Cross that off to a 0, put one more in the months column. So you got credit for that. Let's say your sick leave came out to be 11. Now you've got 29 days. Gone. What does that tell you need to do? You need to convert those 29 calendar days back to sick leave days and not let them go to waste. You can take a whole day of sick leave for a doctor's appointment. You do not have to just take 2 hours off. If you have a problem with your eyes and you can't see coming to work, ain't no glaucoma. Your head up your ass and you can't see coming to work. I'm just saying, if there's times when, you really don't feel well after you've done that calculation, you are literally leaving 29 days of service, you are just flushing down the toilet because you will not get credit for them at all. So, I'm just saying. Okay, all months have 30 days. There's an example in the book on page 14 where I show what I just talked about, how these two things will mesh out to give you an advantage or not an advantage, and give you some math on how to convert back and forth from the calendar days to, I suppose I should keep track of what the hell time it is. 3, 4. Okay. Part-time, I'm not going to cover that. That's pretty simple. Cost of living adjustments, yes, we get them. Guess what other benefit we get? Is we get them immediately. We're the only group of people that gets a cost of living adjustment immediately. Everybody else has to wait till age 62. So even if you're somebody who left at 57, under the regular provisions of FERS, you will not see a COLA for 5 years. You will draw that same pension for 5 years. You guys get it right away. Following year, depending however many months you served in the previous year, if you retired in June and you'd only get 6/12 on the next year's COLA, but the following year you get a full 12 months. So actually, think about how well the retirees are doing. You guys haven't got a pay adjustment in 3 years, right? They got a COLA all 3 years. So the annuitants don't get furloughed. The annuitants always get COLAs. So think about that. Shall I select a spousal benefit survivor annuity? Ooh, we get a lot of questions on that. Everybody thinks they're the smartest guy in the world because they're going to buy a life insurance policy instead of taking the 10% haircut or the 5% haircut. The spousal benefit survivor annuity is a protection that allows your surviving spouse to have some money and some access to FEHB once you die. It's a 10% hit. So if you had a $4,000 unreduced annuity, it would cost you 10% to leave your spouse half of your annuity, which would be $2,000. So instead of you getting paid $4,000, you'd get $3,600. But in exchange for that, when you die, she will receive, or he will receive, $2,000 a month until they die. Now, if the other spouse, the non-employee spouse dies, they stop taking that out and you go back to your full $4,000. You don't have to keep paying it. But there's a lot to be said for this. A lot of folks don't realize that $400 that you're paying for this privilege is tax-free because you're only 1099 on the $3,600. Remember, if you go out and buy life insurance, you're paying for that with after-tax dollars. Okay, first of all. Secondly, you're going to have your wife sign a piece of paper and have it notarized saying that you don't love her enough to leave her half of your salary. That never goes over well. I had a really good quote from an EAD at the Bureau who told me a funny story about how his wife was not amused at him trying to go around that. If you get that life insurance proceeds, what if someone, I always say, guys, because look around, it's a male-dominated industry. So your wife gets this life insurance payout because you die, right? She gets $500,000. What if she gets shitty advice from somebody, and the $500,000 is gone in 2 years?
That's her problem.
That's her problem. That's true. But at least when you do it this way, you're guaranteeing it's an annuity, so it's never going to run out. It's going to come every month. You don't have to worry about managing it. You don't have to worry about picking where you're going to invest it, who's going to manage it for you. It's just a little bit, I think, easier way to leave your surviving spouse a guaranteed level of income that is sufficient after you die. Now, I went to a retirement seminar for one of the companies, Mason & Associates, that's down in Norfolk. And the guy asked an interesting question. He asked the crowd, he goes, what is your largest asset you own? Hands are flying up. The equity of my house, my TSP. Of course, they're all wrong. Largest asset you have is your defined benefit plan. The present value of the future cash flows of your FERS annuity, anywhere between $650,000 and $950,000 actuarial present value. It's say a 5% discount rate. It is a huge asset, and it is one that most people don't realize how big it is until you sit down and do that math, and you figure, especially if you leave at 50, you could be paid for 30 years. That's a huge chunk of money. In fact, one of my next guides, I'm going to compare the return on investment, the guy who works from 30 to 50 and the guy who works 30 to 57. Look at how much they put into the plan, and look at if they live to be 84 years old, how much they got out of the plan. Well, almost bet you the guy that leaves at 50 has a higher return on investment. All right. That's just the basic first stuff. I mean, it's all in the book. I'll go back and circle back if we have time. I just want to hit the parts where I get the most questions. I get questions. The SRS, a lot of questions on that. Okay, we're still good. I got about 1/3 through, so good. The thrift savings plan I'm going to run into next. If you need to take a break, you just get up and go. I'm not going to give an official break. We'll catch you later if you have a question. By the way, I found out today the TSP put a new tool on their website, literally within the last week. It allows you to compare the difference between your monthly income if you buy an annuity through MetLife, through the TSP, versus the life expectancy payout on the TSP. Less than 1% of TSP participants purchase an annuity through MetLife, through the TSP, but just thought I'd tell you about that. There is nothing more important that you can do for your financial well-being in retirement than contribute the most that you can to the TSP. And it's a little different talking to you guys. You know, you make a lot more than, you know, a GS 5 or 7 clerk. So I would imagine that the majority of people in this room are contributing $674 a pay period and are maxing out. But if you're not, you know, there's a number of reasons why people don't. A lot of folks will go 5% and then do the rest outside of the TSP, in their own retirement vehicle. That's cool. But I encourage any of you who are using percentages to stop doing that, unless you're just one of those folks that is shooting for the 5% just to make sure you get the full government match. I still deal with several dozen people a year who end up hitting the maximum before the end of the year. You know, they've gotten, of course we haven't got pay raises, that kind of, it hasn't been as big of a problem, but when we get pay raises, you got a guy putting in 16%, 17%, 15%, and they get a couple of steps, and they get a pay adjustment in January. Next thing you know, their contribution level's above $17,500, and they hit the max in November. Well, that's it. You got no matching for the rest of the year. It's not matched on an annual basis. It's matched on a pay period by pay period basis. You can only get a match from the government in a pay period for which you had a contribution. So the way to make sure you don't do that is just put down $674, as long as it stays at $17,500. Get away from those percentages. Now, if you are contributing but you're not at the max yet, do you remember when? Guess I'm old enough to remember when there was open seasons and you had to wait 6 months before you could even join the TSP. You know, now, you know, it's right, you're immediately join. They automatically put 3% in for you. Well, now there are 26 open seasons a year for the TSP. Every single pay period is an open season. You can make a change. So I had a meeting like this in Richmond with the support staff, and I was just in absolute shock and awe at how low the contribution amounts. I just did a little show of hands, you know, just not to embarrass anybody. And I got them doing something neat there. I've got them going in every 2 weeks. So just take this back to your office. If you got some folks that you work with and you care about at your offices, and you talk to them about finances, maybe something to seek out. I'm sure there's a lot of you in here that have some great financial prowess, and you're one of the guys that the people go to ask questions of. Think about this. Have them go into the NFC or whoever your pay administrator is, and add $5 to whatever if you're contributing $350, now it's $355. Go back 2 weeks later, now it's $360. 2 weeks later, $365. Those are baby steps, folks, but by the end of the year, they'll be up $125 from where they started. And it's a good way to get some of those folks that, if they don't have a big TSP balance, and let's face it, it sucks. You work 30 years, you get 30% of a salary lower than yours. It's not gonna work without the TSP. So do me a favor, do them a favor, go back and talk to them and try to get anybody you know that's not maxing out, or find out if they're maxing out outside of the TSP, but try it. 26 times a year you can go in there and add. There's no paperwork, there's nothing to fax. You just bring up that self-service box on the left, add $5, click save, you're finished. And that'll add 125 by the end. There was a little confusion this year about the 27 pay periods. You know, about every 11 to 12 to 14 years we get an extra pay period, because 26 pay periods times 14 days is 364. So obviously we're going to be you run a day short, and then eventually it catches up with you. That extra pay period we just experienced, there were 27 pay periods in 2012. That will result in an extra pay date in 2018. So we'll get paid 27 times in 2018. I won't. I'm sure it's how I'm going to be here. Okay. We talked about adding the 5%. I've got a few examples in here on trying to get your money up to the maximum. The details in the new Roth TSP, get a lot of questions on the Roth. I got a 3-page write-up in here on it. Not going to go through it all, but it's very situation specific. I'm the poster child for the non-Roth, the traditional TSP. My average tax rate is going to be 1.79% when I retire. And if I don't work, I'm going to get into that later when we talk about why you should retire early. But think about that long and hard. I mean, if you're a brand new person, you know, maybe that makes sense for you. You're certainly going to find anybody out in the hallway here pushing the Roth stuff. If you're an older guy, halfway through your career, better don't lose any sleep over it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with continuing your traditional course of the traditional TSP, unless your financial advisor really says your situation dictates otherwise. A lot of folks are anticipating having a higher tax rates in retirement, and that's not always true. It depends on whether you've paid your house off or not, how old your kids are these, you know, they're still going to have a big Schedule A. You know, my taxes are going to be lower in retirement than they are now, so that would not make any sense for me. But there's a lot of documentation on the TSP website. I walked through 2 pages of examples in my guide on basically what you're trying to do is see is the future value of all of the tax savings you got from your contributions greater or less than the present value of the tax savings you're going to get when you pull it out. And those are the 2 numbers that I compare in there. Because it's all keyed on the withdrawal rate. If in retirement you're just going to pull 3% a year out of your TSP, it's a pretty low withdrawal rate. It's very unlikely that scenario is going to favor a Roth TSP. It's just not, especially when you were in a 28% tax bracket while you were working. But if you were going to pull out $100,000 when you retired to buy a new car or do something else foolish, then it would certainly pay off to be in a Roth TSP. But those are some things to think about before you blindly just don't jump on the bandwagon just because everybody else is. It really depends. How much can I contribute to the TSP in the year you retire? We're going to talk about that just because a lot of you guys are leaving on 1/11. That paycheck for that pay period will be in tax year 2014, not 2013. So if you want to, you can go in and just allocate your net pay literally to the TSP if you wanted to sneak one big payment in there at the beginning of the year. A lot of guys will do that. They'll front load that. In fact, it's 2 pay periods that you can do that on. The pay period that ends on 12/27 pays in 2014, and the pay period that ends on 1/11 pays in 2014. So you've actually, if you're leaving on 1/11, you've got 2 pay period opportunities to kick that up for 2014. Now, if you're going to work for somewhere else where you plan on maxing out their plan, don't worry about it because you can only put in 17.5 between the 2 plans. But if you're not going to be putting anything into a deferred comp plan in any potential new employer, seriously consider that. You know, maybe put in $3,000 a paycheck for those last 2 paychecks and get $6 grand hidden from the tax man, you know, in 2014. It's a little confusing how those pay periods at the end of the year don't actually pay. Remember, we're all cash basis taxpayers. It's when you get the money on the official pay date. It's not when the pay period ends. So you got 2 opportunities to throw some extra money in if you're one of the folks leaving on 1/11. The number 3 question I get is getting your money out of the thrift savings plan. Still have a lot of confusion on that. Let's start the easiest solution first. If you work until the year that you turn 55, You have unabated, penalty-free access to the TSP. You can do whatever the hell you want. You can pull it all out. You can take out $10,000 a month, $2,000 a month. You just tell the TSP what you want to do. And that is not a special rule for law enforcement. That's not a special rule for the TSP. That is just the IRS's general rule. But it has to be from the employer-sponsored plan. As some readers who learned that after the fact. If you work until your 55th year, you don't have to be 55. My birthday's in December. If I worked until January of the year I turned 55, I'm golden. I could leave in January, and I count as my 55th year. The IRS only cares about your status on December 31st. That's why you can get married on Christmas Day, and you can file married filing jointly, because that's your status on 12/31. So on a tax year where you would be 55 years old at the end of the year, you have unabated penalty-free access to your TSP. But you gotta leave it in the TSP. If you get out at 55 and you roll it over to somebody else to manage it for you, now the IRA rules take over. That option is no longer available. 59.5, substantially equal monthly payments, or 72T out of an IRA. Don't be that guy. If you work till 55, leave it in the TSP. Once it's 59.5, then it doesn't matter. But leave it in the TSP from 55 to 59.5, or you're really going to screw yourself. It has happened to a number of my readers. That's why I added that in here. So that's the easiest thing. Work till 55. Well, sure as hell I'm not doing that. So I got to think, how am I going to get my money out? So at age 50, I'm going to opt for the substantially equal monthly payment plan based upon my life expectancy. It's an option right on the TSP 70. On the full withdrawal, I click calculate my payments for me. I got the percentages listed right in here on page 26. So at age 50, the TSP will take my account balance, multiply by 2.924%, divide by 12, and that's what I get every month in 2014. At the end of 2014, they look at my new account balance, which I hope will have grown some, and they will multiply that by 3.003, divide that by 12, and send that to me every month. And I am locked into that until I'm 59 and a half, 9.5 years of that. At age 59 and a half, I can tell the TSP, stop the nonsense, I want this much a month, or I can pull my money out and put it in an IRA, do whatever the hell I want with it. But if you're 50 years old, that's how you're going to get the money out of your TSP without a penalty. And remember, when there's a penalty involved, the TSP does not assess that penalty. The TSP does not withhold that penalty. You report that penalty on Form 5329. So just keep that in mind if you get some money out that did break the rules and you say, oh, the TSP didn't penalize me. They don't penalize you. The IRS penalizes you. And it's a self-report and self-identified penalty unless they catch you in an audit. So those are the two main ways to get your money out. The other way is under the Pension Protection Act of 2006, in Section 828, there was a new exception for police officers to get their hands on their money at age 50. Unfortunately, this law was lobbied for by the police unions. It wasn't a federally sought-out legislative change. Both FLEOA and the FBI Agents Association are both working on that, but mostly FLEOA. In a legislative fix for that, there's two problems in that legislation. They defined a law enforcement officer as a state or local only, and they defined the plan as a defined benefit plan, and the TSP is obviously a defined contribution plan. But I've also got emails from a dozen of my readers telling me that they called the IRS, and the IRS said, oh, no, we know that's the law, but we're not going to interpret it that way. If you're an FBI agent, you can, or whatever, 1811, you can follow the Pension Protection Act 2006 and pull your money out. I wouldn't advise it. I won't put it in the guide. I wouldn't advise it. It's contrary to the law. I detail it in here, but I'd wait for the legislative change before I would do that. But I'm hoping that FLEOA will have some luck in the next couple of years doing that. But quite frankly, there's just not a hell of a lot of sympathy out there for federal employees right now. And going and asking for an additional benefit, it's probably not that popular, but at least we're asking for something that the locals already have. So we're not asking for something new. But that may potentially, so stay tuned, may be a potential way in the next couple of years to not be 55 and be able to get the same benefits of being 55 at age 50 and pulling your money out. If you retire, let's see, if you do the life expectancy, and all right, the other one that you'll hear people talk about is a 72T plan. It just refers to the IRS code section that governs a series of substantially equal monthly payments. You can do that and leave your money in the TSP, by the way. You don't have to pull it out. I detail it on page 27. Under that plan, it allows you, let's say if my life expectancy payment worked out to be $15,000 a year, a 72T annuitization is probably going to be more like $19,000 to $20,000 a year. But it won't grow. It'll be the same. It'll be the same every year from 50 to 59 and a half. And you are allowed to take that out using an interest rate that is published by the IRS called the midterm applicable federal rate. And that's another way to get it out. The total amount that you get out between 50 and 59 is not going to be that much more because the life expectancy one grows a little bit every year and starts to finally catch up to it. It's a lot more work. You know, there's a lot to be said for letting the TSP handle that for you. You know, if you try a 72T plan and you take and roll over your TSP balance into a self-directed IRA, now you or someone you pay is going to have to identify each month what specific asset you're going to sell, you know, what shares of stock to equal the amount of annuitized payment you're going to get, sell that, where there could be a trading fee, I don't know, there may not be depending on who you use, move those proceeds to a money market account or a brokerage account, and then pull that funding out. So then you got to do that every month. TSP does it for you automatically. They will sell it out in the exact same ratio that you hold your shares in the TSP and send you the check every month. You don't have to do a damn thing. It's a lot more work to do the 72T plan, but I put a new link in here for bankrate.com, has a great calculator for the annuitization method if you want to do that. So I know I talked a lot about different ways to get it out. I'm going to recap it real quickly. Work till you're 55, no problems, do whatever you want. Do what I'm going to do, use a life expectancy payout, let the IRS handle it for you. Option 3, take your chances that the IRS will interpret the Pension Protection Act in your favor if you get audited, which I don't recommend. And option 4 is a 72T annuitization plan, which requires you to leave your money in the TSP or take it out, but it requires you to identify the assets to be sold in either case. Hopefully, FLEOA will have some luck on that. I've written up some stuff for John Adler and others explaining what we need to do and explaining the changes that need to come about. So, and I've offered my assistance to them at all. The TSP withdrawals options when you retire, obviously you can do nothing. You can transfer the balance out to an IRA. You could purchase an annuity, request an amount monthly like we just talked about. I've got these 2 sites here on managing your TSP account, the fedtrader.com and tspallocation.com. I don't get any kickbacks for any of this stuff. These guys are just they're 2 readers. They're both 1811s. One guy's a pilot for DEA down in Mexico City. I don't know what the hell the other guy does. But they both seem to know what they're talking about. They had some good advice, as a matter of fact. About 10 days ago, Bill, the Fed Trader guy, you know, he said, hold on, don't panic, don't move out of the S fund yet. You know, let's just see how this thing plays out. And sure enough, the last 5 days in the market have all been positive, solid days. So I think he had some pretty good advice there. So if you're looking for a free resource or just something else for giggles to look at and see how somebody else's thinking might comport with your thinking, these are I think two good sites that are run by people who've been reading my guide for a long time. I email them regularly. We stay in touch. They don't charge for this. It's free. There are some ones you can certainly pay to join, but these guys do it for free. You can't afford not to contribute the maximum to the TSP, guys. You can live paycheck to paycheck, you know, in this industry. When you know there's another paycheck, you can live paycheck to paycheck. You know, get that up to the full 17.5, and if you got yourself in a ringer, you can always borrow the same funds back from the TSP that you just put in and pay them back. So you can always get your hands on it again. But, you know, make that effort to get it in there because it's the key to successful retirement. It's one of the reasons I'm going to be able to leave at 50 and be able to not, we'll get into that when I get to the retirement part. But do whatever you can. I mean, you know, you can just I bring my lunch once or twice a week. I've got my cars, let's see, I've got an 11-year-old minivan and a 25-year-old sedan. Those are my cars. Don't take fancy vacations, fix everything myself. Just try to be very prudent. Every single expense I run through my credit card every month. My credit card bill will be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, paid off every month. But if my kid's at McDonald's and he goes, Dad, can I get a snack size McFlurry? I said, sure, Eden, here you go. And he walks up, I just got 1.7 cents. If you watch the pennies, guys, the dollars take care of themselves. I put everything through my credit card, Anybody that will bill to my credit card. Right now I'm using the USAA cash rewards card. It's about 1.3%. I'm going to switch to the Capital One. They have one that's now doing 1.5% on all purchases. So you said, if in effect, you kind of lower your cost of living by 1.5% just by doing that. But you know, it's kind of the opposite of the whole Dave Ramsey thinking. But you know, you've got to understand when you're swiping that card, it's the same as handing somebody currency. And when the bill comes in every month, it's paid. Period. It's not negotiable. It's not something you ever cheat on. You pay it off. But it's a great way to track your expenses. If you want to go back and see how much did I spend on dining, how much did I spend on entertainment, you get that. When you're paying cash for everything, it's a hell of a lot harder if you're trying to keep a budget to keep track of where all this money went. So credit card, and if no one's going to give me a discount for using a check, I'm not going to give them a check. They're going to get a credit card payment. And second reason is I can get a chargeback if I'm not satisfied with the goods or services, and I've made a good faith effort to do that. I think a couple of months ago I had a Carvel cake. It was all freezer burned. Some bitch wouldn't give me my money back. I did a chargeback on him. I went to USAA and click, click, click. That's just an automatic $22 back to me. They're not going to, file any paperwork with USAA to contest that. So you can't do that if you handed the guy $22, right? But you got that power when you use a credit card in order to do that. So I tell you, it's a great tool to be able to sit back and look at where all your money went when you use a credit card. But you got to use it like a debit card. But you use the credit card because you're getting the benefit. I got a $675 cash, $670 cash credit on January last year on my USAA card. And that's how they do it. They don't do it every month. It's an annual at the end of the year. So whoever you pick, just make sure you're getting something for spending your money. Review your automotive policy. Who the hell needs uninsured motorist coverage for credit? That's stupid. It allows you to sue yourself to the same limits of your policy. If you get hurt, your health insurance is going to pay to put you back together. I've had my car insurance with USAA for 21 years. You know how many claims I've had? I keep my deductibles at $1,000 per incidence. And it hasn't burned me because I've never had a claim. Of course, my 13-year-old's not driving yet. But you would be surprised at how much lower the premiums are at that level. My homeowners insurance is the same way. I've got a $1,500 deductible on homeowners insurance. Number of claims I've ever filed for homeowners? 0. But I've been able to save that money by not, keeping so just look at these little things. They don't sound like much, but when you start to just kind of wring out all the pennies that you can, sometimes $1 comes out at the end of it, and then it starts to add up. I'm not that big of a tight ass, but you gotta do wherever you can, and try to instill those same values in your kids and make them appreciate it. That'll bring us up to our general retirement issues. So we've covered two things already. We covered FERS at a high level and the TSP. Bottom line with the TSP, the takeaway is if you're not doing the full 675, please try to do that. Somehow make it get there and do it. Even if you run yourself a little shorter, you don't need to have a $50,000 rainy day fund because you work for the government. It's not going to rain. No one will pay you more to do less. Trust me. It is the opposite of the private sector. My next door neighbor right now works for Baxter. He's a farmer rep. That guy must have a new employer every 3 years. We have that stability. The only way the Bureau will get rid of you is you got to fuck up and then you got to lie about it. That's the only way you're going to get fired. Or usually it's screw up and move up is our policy. So, somebody said earlier, what do you do when you screw up? You send them to headquarters, right? So really, what are the chances that you're going to really have that happen to you? If you got a home equity line and, something goes to shit and you got to go buy a kidney on eBay, you can always tap the equity on your house, right? So don't be afraid to get that in there, Now, the home equity lines, I have refinanced my home in San Diego, I refinanced 17 times in 11 years, God's truth. And I've refinanced I've lived in Richmond now for 3.5 years, and I just did my 6th refinance in November of last year. And I saw my 3rd home equity line refinance last week to bring it, most of those refinances were for 1/8 of a point. I will go through that complete pain in the ass of filling all that paperwork out because I'm a nerdy little accountant, son of a bitch, and I'll fill that paperwork out. In fact, the last lady said I filled out more blanks than anybody ever filled out before. So if you don't have to pay a fee for it, if you can get like a 1% cost credit and you're borrowing enough money, then it won't cost you a dime. So, I've got myself down to a 3 3/8 30 year. I keep going 30 years. I had this argument with my boss at work. He's got a 4% loan, and the money was 3 3/8. I'm like, Rick, you got to refinance. No way, man. I've only got 7 years left, man. I'm not stretching that out again. It's the note rate, folks. It doesn't give a shit how long the payback period is. All that matters is the note rate. Okay, that's the cost of the money. It's all that matters. I don't care if you've got 3 years left on your mortgage. If it's at 5% and you can refinance it to 4% for no money out of your pocket, you would be absolutely foolish not to do it. You can still pay it off in 3 years, but even quicker now, right? It's the note rate. That's all that matters. Don't worry about, well, I stretched it back over 30 years. You're going to have the ability to still pay it off in 3 months. Nobody has prepayment penalties anymore. But refinance that thing. I mean, right now, unfortunately, in the last 3 weeks, as you know, today the no-point rate was almost 4 7/8. I mean, interest rates have kicked up in the last 10 days tremendously, but they may temper down a little bit again. And you can pick up home equity lines for usually prime plus a quarter, sometimes even prime plus an eighth if you open up a bank account at the bank as well. Do that stuff. It pays off. And home equity lines never have closing fees. So if you run into a bind, and you can just tap the equity in your house instead of having to worry about having to sit in your bank account, and then you put it in a TSP. Well, you got to, it takes a lot of time. So do it at work. I got a fax machine. I got free telephone. Isn't that what FTS stands for? Free telephone service? Yeah. So, you pay yourself first. I mean, you can't take care of the Bureau's business until you've taken care of your business. That's what I tell the new guys. You know what? A guy will be sitting there, I'm like, what's wrong? Oh, my wife said I got to go by Home Depot and get this water filter cartridge. Well, then put your ass in the car, drive over there, get the water filter cartridge, come back here, and then get to work. Because you're not going to obviously be any use to me until you go do what your wife told you to do before the end of the day. So, same thing. Take care of your own business first. It's just a job. All right. Whew. Thank you. 20 minutes left? Jesus, you're killing me. All right. General retirement issues. You probably noticed a business card out there now. I'm still doing this FERS guide for free. I plan to continue to do it at least one more year. Probably keep doing it forever after that, if I can make enough money doing other stuff. My main thing, I did about 100 of these. Remember a while ago I said I'm doing divorce work. I knocked out about 100 of these actuarial pension valuations for people. Got a lot of experience doing that, so now I'm charging for it. If you're going through a divorce, you have got to do yourself a favor and make sure you get an attorney who has done lots of federal divorces. You would not believe the number of people who call me up and say, Dan, it's like I'm the first fucking guy to get a divorce in the FBI. I can't find anybody that knows what they're talking about. And that's true. You're going to find attorneys in family law that are not used to doing federal divorces. You've got to find somebody. If you know somebody in your group or your squad that's going through a divorce, make sure they get an attorney who has done this stuff before. You wouldn't believe the horror stories I have seen and I am working on right now. Right now I'm working on a guy whose ex-wife, and I'm not picking on wife or husband, it's just former spouse, is getting 50% of his annuity because 2 words were missing from the order. Marital share. Not there. 13 years ago, he never read it. He asked his attorney what it said. His attorney told him what it said. He believed it to be the coverture period, meaning the period of his employment with ATF that overlapped the period of his career with the marriage. Instead, it was written 50% period. So she's getting 50% now instead of 22% forever. The likelihood of him winning that, reopening that, is between 0 and 0. So he's screwed. You wouldn't believe the number that I see that are 10, 12 years old. These guys haven't looked at them. They get ready to retire. They pull them out and look at them. And then the other ones I'm working on now, same thing, that the valuations are all over the map. I have one that I mentioned in here, started out at he hired some company, came back at $560-some thousand valuation on her share. He's full of shit. This is all wrong. Here you go. Send it back. He comes back at this guy's taking my advice, right? He's a paid professional. He's taking my advice. He comes back with 400 and some. I ripped out the shreds. It comes back 300 and some. I ripped out the shreds. 4 iterations. He comes back at $262,000, which is $2,000 above mine. Finally got to the same number. I mean, you just can't assume that because you hired somebody who has the words pension valuation in the name that they know what the hell they're doing. I can assure you I do. I've been divorced before. I've had this job for 21 years, and I'm a CPA. I will not screw you. If you hire me to do this, I can assure you it will be a fair number, it will be an accurate number, and one that is defensible in court. Most of these guys, they just give you, this is my little sales pitch, most of these guys give you a page or two with their name on it, your date of birth, her date of birth, your EOD, and they say the value of the marital share is this. I give you a 3-page report that says exactly what my assumptions are, what data you provided me. I walk you through a 1.5 pages of the actual permutations of the calculation. You can follow along at home, and you can see where I get my number, and I have had incredibly good success at getting opposing counsel to accept my numbers for one reason: they're defensible. You can't fake your EOD, your birth date, your divorce date, your separation date, your high 3. You can't fake the formulas for the time value of money. If you show people how you get to that number, then it's a defensible number. So that's only, I don't write the orders, I'm not an attorney, but if you have a desire to buy your spouse out of their retirement, because I highly push that, because why in the hell would you want to have a continuing financial relationship with someone you hate? It just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, right? And let's say somebody gets remarried later on. I mean, what husband or wife that remarries wants to know that their former husband and wife is still paying their wife? I mean, it's just crazy stuff. Pay them off and never talk again. That's what you want to do. It's different when you have children because you've got the custody issues and the child support, but I'm talking about, this financial issue is likely to hit well after the children have finished the child support sections and you're done with alimony. And this is time to not be talking anymore, right? It's over. And you've still got this continuing financial relationship going that you could have bought them out of. And remember, proceeds from lawsuits are not subject to taxation, so if you take it as an annuity later on, it's taxable. If you give her $100,000 out of your TSP to walk away from that, that's not taxable to her or him. So keep that in mind. But I've got my cards out there. It's still dan@firstguy.com. If you know somebody going through a divorce, even if you don't hire me, just get somebody that has done this before that will do it for you competently. I don't kiss and tell. I give a free consultation to anybody. I still do free reviews. I really enjoy that. If you got a PSA, MSA, or a court order for processing that is going to go to OPM that you just want a second set of eyes to see that your attorney's giving you to review, email it to me. I will read it. I will rip it to shreds or tell you it's great. One or the other, send it back to you. There's no charge. I just sleep better at night knowing that somebody didn't get screwed, on their divorce. So even if you don't need evaluation, send me what it is that your attorney wants you to sign and let me look at it before you sign it. There are so many things that need to be addressed in those court orders that aren't. If it just says that the former spouse shall receive a spousal benefit survivor annuity on a prorated share, period, and it doesn't say who pays for that, who do you think pays for it? The employee, the annuitant. It needs to say costs shall be borne equally by the parties or costs shall be borne by the former spouse. It should, because they're the beneficiary. They should pay for it. That kind of stuff. If you can't just define on a high level, you need to get into the details and explain to OPM what it is you want to do. You can leave somebody a $1 a month award if their main concern is just having access to FEHB after retirement. And because you can buy her out and still give her $1 a month, or him. So anyway, that's enough of my sales pitch. We're going to move past there. And the TSP is really easy to do. I don't even bother with that. Best day to retire, best day to retire, if you retire at the end of the month, your annuity's effective the next day. I know I'm leaving 12/20. It seems stupid, but my kids get out of school on 12/20, and I'm going to spend the time with them. And you can't use terminal leave in the FBI anymore, so that's why I'm doing that. But if you leave on 1/11, you guys who are leaving at the beginning of the year to get the sick leave, no one's going to pay you from the 11th to the 31st. Your annuity starts on 2/1. The part I wanted to get into with my whopping 20 minutes here, the most annual leave, I think you guys all know you get paid for your annual leave at your locality and ADP rate. Make sure that's done correctly. When you leave, they'll withhold 20% flat out of that as an award when it's paid to you. It should come, and OAS and Social Security, Medicare will be taken out of that. The backlog of applications, they're predicting 22,000 retirements in January this year, OPM is. And they've lost their overtime for processing, so that's going to get even longer. I've got a section in here on if things go badly. Anybody who doesn't think bad things happen to people needs to read my email every day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't get the email saying, I just got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Should I take a disability retirement or should I retire in February if they'll let me stay? I just wrecked my motorcycle. I am completely disabled. Should I do a disability retirement or should I do this? I just got divorced. I'm paying this. What should I do? Every day I get these emails, every single day. I stop what I'm doing and I work on these. If somebody writes me and says, I'm stage 4 breast cancer, I need to know what are my options financially. I stop what I'm doing and I work on that right then and there, and I send it to them within 24 hours in a very frank write-up of what they're looking at. So bad shit happens all the time. Now, if you know anybody that's in that kind of position, make sure they email me with the questions. I will take care of it. I don't charge a dime for it. I will get them what they need in order to make the right decisions to best protect the husband or wife that's remaining and the children, you know, from a financial standpoint. I mean, I can't help you from a medical standpoint, and my emails are pretty frank and grim, but most people want that. They just want to know, what are my choices, and what's going to leave my you know, surviving spouse and children in a better financial picture. And there's a dramatic difference sometimes between a disability retirement and a regular retirement. Sometimes a disability retirement can produce a significantly higher benefit for your spouse if you are going to pass on, if it's a terminal disease. So if you know anybody in that position, send it to me. There's some examples in here on how that happens. Now my favorite section, page 40. Can I afford to retire early? How much time do I have?
11 minutes.
Jesus. All right. I'm retiring at age 50 with 21 years and 3 months in December. If you look at the money, like I said at the beginning of this, you're never going to retire. It always pays to work. Let's get that off the table right now. You're always going to make more money working. But that's just an objective measure of success in your life. It's not a subjective measure of success. I have an 8th grade and 5th grade boy, which I would like to spend more time with, which we do a lot of fun stuff together. I've about had it with the Bureau. It's not the same FBI I joined 21 years ago. Hopefully, but with Bobby 3 Sticks gone, the new guy's going to fix some of that, some of those messes for the new guys. So I'm ready to go. And my wife was out for 3 weeks in April for back surgery. I took 3 weeks off. Another good ready to burn 46 days of sick leave, folks. Care for your wife who can't walk up and down the stairs. All right. So I did that, and it gave me a lot of time to scrub these numbers, and I sit down with her, make sure, you know, it's a joint decision. You got to make sure your husband or wife is. In fact, that's where I was at lunch today. I went to lunch with one of my buddies here in the Denver office who brought his wife along so I could convince her that he could retire. That was my lunch. It was a good warm up for today. But when it comes time to think about, you'll know when it's time to go. I've been planning this move for 2 years. At 48, I knew I had to leave at 50. I bought a little countdown clock on eBay, and I programmed it with the date, and you know, I enjoy looking at that every day. You got to sit down with your husband or wife, and you got to make sure that they understand that you're actually, you know, more secure in retirement. You can't be fired, you can't be OPR'd, you can't be found unfit for duty. You're going to get a COLA every January. Health insurance costs the same. I just can't find a real disadvantage to being retired over working in terms of that. You're not going to get the match anymore on the TSP. You're not going to be able to, you know, slide $23,000 into the TSP anymore to avoid. But what I look at is accountants like me, nerdy little folks that we are, sometimes all we care about is, you know, can I pay the bills? I'm not trying to get rich, folks. I'm just trying to get by. My dad dropped dead at age 62. Absolutely no forethought, reason at all. Just dead. Just phone call from mom, dad's dead. That was it. And it sucked. But I'm like, wow. That kind of changed the way I thought of things. You know, 62's, you know, not all that young, but it's not all that old either for dying. So I told my wife when she was driving to the airport to go to the funeral that, you know, there's a lot more to life than just getting rich. You know, we got some guys in our office here that, you know, their religion is money. So they don't give a shit about anything but money. They will analyze everything for the last nickel and dime dollar. Now, I'm a cheap ass, I'll tell you that. That's how I've been able, I think, to afford to do this. But there's a difference between that and just trying to get unnecessarily rich. I'm just trying to get by, folks. I'm not trying to get rich. So I sat down with my wife and I said, listen, this is what it is. I'm 13.9. I clear $6,000 a month, folks. It's no shit. That's what I clear. That's what my paychecks are. $3,026.11 every 2 weeks. That's after my TSP, health insurance, all the other bullshit that comes out. Dan Jamison has $6,000 a month to pay his bills with. And magically, I do. We pay the bills. In retirement, I took my TurboTax. I encourage you to do the same thing if you prepare your own taxes. I went there and I deleted my W-2. Wifey doesn't work. Deleted my W-2. I did an alt override. I entered in my whopping 21-year, 3-month annuity, my $1,600 a month from the TSP from my life expectancy payout, and my $980 that I'm going to get from the SRS. Folks, I'm $600 short in retirement. $600. I will have $5,400 cash to pay my bills with. That's not nearly the income I had. Right off the bat, I had $23,000 going to the TSP. I don't give a shit about that anymore. I've been saving for 21 years for the sole and express purpose of depleting that account by the time I die. I will write my last check for my last dollar on the last day of my life. That is the number one thing I get from people. I can't touch my TSP. I can't touch that. Why the hell not? You've been saving for 20 years for that sole and express purpose of depleting that account. I'm starting to deplete it right when I turn 50 years old. Just think about those numbers. And I tell you, I've been doing this for 10 years. You know how many emails I have from people telling me they are unhappy in retirement? All my emails say the same thing. Dan, I cannot believe I ever gave this a second thought. Dan, I cannot believe that it took me this long to retire. I cannot believe how I ever found time for work, is what I'm told. My buddy Jim Smith that left San Diego with me, went to Columbia, South Carolina, worked his year for his transfer, had planned to go to work for Bank of America, didn't do it. You know why? He trimmed $600 a month off his budget. He didn't work at all. So you'd be surprised. And you know what? If my TSP runs out by the time I'm 95, I don't care either. I'll just be a burden to my children at that point. Right? I don't care. Daddy needs changing. But, you know, believe it or not, you know, you're going to consume a lot between age 50 and 70. You still will be a big consumer. But I'm telling you, after a while, it starts to taper off. You're not going to travel as much. You're not going to consume as much. You're not going to buy the new cars. You're going to be downsizing. Your empty nest hits. You're going to sell that house. You're not going to need the kind of money at age 80 that you need at age 50. And that's okay. So you don't have to worry about having all that money then. Of course, I got 2 boys, so I'm screwed. Neither one's going to take care of me. But any of you guys with daughters, you're probably in good shape. I know I'm probably out of time by now. But I just want you to think about the non-money reasons why it might be nice to retire. For health reasons, for your children, for whatever, just for your own mental health. You know, there's no reason you got to stay here till 57. I know, you know those people. They're 57. They put in the extension. They get pissed off because they couldn't get an extension to 58. You know, and I've talked to a guy in the Denver field. You know, the Denver FBI office is like 4 blocks from here. It's right over here across the street. So I went over there yesterday I'm a tech agent, so I went over the tech side over there and talked to them. And this guy over there, you know, he's pissed off because he only got a 6-month extension. I'm like, holy cow, what are you trying to do here? You know, you need to be gone. You know, 57 is mandatory for a reason. And the other thing I forgot to tell you on the divorce stuff, and then I'll get out of here. We are governed by, I'm backtracking, we are governed by Title V solely on divorce work. No monies can be paid to your former spouse until you actually retire, just so you know that. Very different than the private sector. I mean, if I worked for Eaton Corporation and I could retire at 60, and I choose to keep working at 60, I got to pay her. Or she's got, or you know, the other way around, pay the husband. You don't. So it's a game of survivor, folks. If there's enough spite and you want to work long enough, you'll never pay a dime on your retirement. You have a mandatory at 57, but you can go to a non-covered position, right? You could be a GS -2 file clerk for 10 years and just laugh. Your high 3 doesn't change, right? But you know, no monies are going to get paid. All right, well, I can't talk about anything else because I'm out of time, so we hit the most of it. But I will be around. I will stay over here for a little while if you have specific questions. You got my email. It's dan@firstguy.com. You should all have printouts. I love questions. Yeah, I send this out automatically, guys. If you send an email to my address on here, dan@firstguy.com, and ask to join the mailing list, I don't sell it to anybody. I think I've got the largest collection of .gov and .mil addresses outside of the NSA. Or the DEA. So send me that. I will add you to my list. It's like 2 to 3, 4 emails a year. I just send out the new versions. I don't share it with people. I don't give it out. I don't send out bullshit. I just send out stuff when I got a new edition to send out. I do 3 to 4 hours a day of email. I clear my box out every night. My wife thinks I'm crazy. If you got any questions, send them to me. If I don't have the answer, I have peers in this industry who will answer them for me. I take full credit for their answers and give them back to you. So if you got a question, hit me up, and I will get you an answer. Okay, guys? Thank you very, very much.